Oh wow, hi! I'm Wendy and I have the pleasure of talking to you about my job in risk management tonight. That's what I look like today. So I work for an ASX listed mining company. So risk management for us is working around big equipment, lots of hazardous zones, continuously managing multiple different commitments on any given day. But after all the places I've been, I have to say that the most hazardous area has still got to be my family living room after my kids have attacked it. So risk management is quite familiar to my family, as I'm sure it is to yours. So every night, my dear husband has the pleasure of navigating his way with my 11-year-old for one more game of Fortnite. Or my 3-year-old, my princess 3-year-old, who just wants one more episode of Wiggles. And me in perimenopause. And so the poor man looks like this every night after our nightly risk management routine. I'm not your everyday risk manager, like our noble health and safety specialists, who ensures that you get home safely every night. Or those in HR, who have the job in ensuring that we don't hire Zach, whose resume contains an in-depth description of his favourite chakras. God bless Zach. I'm what's called an enterprise risk manager, which means I work across the organisation to make sure that we have lots of processes in place so they prevent us from doing really bad things. Sometimes those bad things end up in newspapers, but we're always trying to make sure that the bad things don't get to this point. So you might think that being a risk manager, I'm not very popular in my organisation, but it's not true. And it's because I get lost a lot. Constantly navigating my way through, finding friends and building support networks. And the job involves helping people define multiple scenarios. Some they can live with, like the dirty sock trail that goes through my son's door every night. And some that keep you up at night, like going to the fridge for my favourite ice cream, only to find that my darling husband's left an empty container in there for me. It can be hard to decide on what choices you're going to make when you're risk managing. A bit like a hormonal roller coaster that us women have the pleasure of going on a regular basis. We've got to focus on, my job is making sure that people focus on what's in their control. Not just looking at the worst case, but looking at where they're going. And to just generally go from a feeling of anxiety to feeling like they're winning. A bit like Serena here. Go Serena. It's the very opposite to wishful thinking, and it means that I help the people in my organisation plan and turn the plans in their head into reality. So I just wanted to take you through a couple of the aspects of risk management that I find to be the most powerful. So you've all come across probably a risk consequence table, but I find that the most important step, actually, going back, is working out, do you know the problem you're solving? Are your objectives clear? Do you know what success looks like? And is it aligned with your organisation? And importantly, your boss? So talking about alignment, my husband has the objective of buying a Ferrari as our next family car. So unless he wins the lottery, which he calls an investment, by the way. Me, also known as his boss, yes, Dave, and him are definitely not on the same page. So I don't think we're aligned, and so talking about this objective is not really going to get us anywhere. But talking about getting me a Lamborghini, on the other hand, you'd be surprised how long it can take just to work out this one thing about the problem or the objective or outcome you're seeking to achieve. It's the one thing that gets me lost within my organisation over and over again. But it's fun. I get to deal on any given day with topics like cybersecurity, climate change, mining unit design, specifications. I just got to be careful when I come across Zach. So if you know what your goals and the outcomes you're working towards, it then becomes easier to identify the causes or the things that you need to solve. So as far as my living room is concerned, it could either be the fact of my family's living habits, or the fact that I have OCD. We're still negotiating that one. So I know what you're thinking. We've talked about problems and outcomes. I just want to get on with it. Please let me just get on with it. But before you do, we need to work out what the worst case that you're risk managing from to the acceptable case that you're risk managing to. So I got thinking a little bit about my living room, and I'm thinking worst case. So one, and it has to be plausible, by the way, as well. So I'm thinking my son, for example, decides that he's going to throw a party and he puts the invitation out on Facebook. And I come home to my living room looking something like this. The red here as significant will correlate to the colour of my face, and potentially my temper also, from seeing this. But possibly not plausible at this stage, given that he has restricted social media rights, although he may seek to argue that they're non-restricted after this talk. But what is definitely plausible is that he loves sports, and so an indoor game of soccer or basketball results in our living room looking something like this with a television. This, my friends, is definitely in the major or catastrophic, as mum has to keep up with the Kardashians. So risk management here is we are going to limit any indoor sports to pass the parcel only. My daughter, for one more example, decides that she's going to decorate our lovely designer rug with paint markers that she found in my son's room. I still have no idea why I got my kids paint markers. Okay, so you get it. We get to a plausible worst case, and now we need to get to an acceptable risk range. So if you see it in the red, you know you either have to avoid it, design it out, or go and have a conversation with your boss as to whether it's acceptable. So my case of my living room, it's either about changing my kids or changing the state of my living room. So I'm thinking, let's move the designer rug, but the television's getting a bit old, so maybe I can accept indoor sports. So let's be realistic. My goal is not to have my living room look like a spread in Better Homes and Gardens, as my husband and I refuse to be living mates. I think we're living in denial, Dave. And last time I checked, Alfred had not come out of retirement. Remember Alfred? We all needed an Alfred in our lives. So the objective, so you know what your objective, you know the worst case that you've defined that, you've negotiated what the acceptable outcome is, and you know what's going to cause you to not succeed. So you've got all the pieces now to get solving. So you then need to ask yourself, how do I know I succeed? What does winning look like? So it's important to I ask people to continuously review. Just make sure you don't listen to Zach along the way. And review, because you'll review your own plans to make sure you're on the right path. And once you're done, it's time to celebrate. Now let's be clear, we do not celebrate with glitter in my household. Because if you did, you'd be prepared to turn up to work tomorrow looking like the fairy princess. So thank you for listening to my talk about risk management and why I think it's important and it's applicable to any realm that you work in. And really, for my living room, to end with, I think it's just sometimes easier to close the door.